This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is February 1st, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always. I am joined by my co-host, Luke Sylvia. Luke, what is going on, man? How are you?
We did it. January has come to a close. The dreaded stretch that we've been talking about and analyzing since the schedule release, it's over. We made it, and we get to kind of close that chapter and look ahead to what is supposed to be the easiest stretch of basketball for anybody the rest of the year. So now's where you start stacking games. I'm relieved that we pulled it off tonight.
Yeah, you made it through the month of January. The Magic now sit at 25-23. We'll get into the state of the Magic in just a little bit here. But they finished the month of January 6-10. Not great, but you essentially did enough to stay above 500 through the month of January, which is what we've been talking about the Magic really needed to do. So although it was rough and it was incredibly frustrating at times, Luke, I'm happy with the way that this turned out for the most part.
It goes back to what I had said recently, which was being a playoff team feels different, and when your aspirations are playoffs, because you're not so much analyzing like, yes, we're going to break down the game and talk about what this team needs to do to get better, but at the end of the day, you're just happy with the win. A lot of times in the past, we've just gotten caught up in, are we tanking? And when we do win, it's still been critical because it's like, this is the things this team needs still. And there was a laundry list of things. Now it's essentially clean up the turnovers and get some shooters and get some flow in that offense when it's stagnant. But you got the win, and that's really all we can ask for when you're trying to climb the standings like we are right now.
Yeah, if we go back and we take a look at that stretch, essentially it was 28 games starting December 6th versus Cleveland. That really brutal stretch starting at the beginning of December, really the entire month of December and the entire month of January. It was 28 games. The Magic went 11-17. And out of those 28 games, you had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 or 8 of those games didn't come against teams that were squarely in the playoff position. And a couple of those games being, or at least one of those games being against Golden State. So the fact that you were playing really good teams night in and night out, and the Magic, it got a little bit hairy. Like there were some times where we're like, hey, if Magic aren't able to get a win here and other teams go on runs, we might find ourselves under 500. And luckily it never came to that. But you just got to be happy with the way that the Magic were able to tread water over the last several weeks here as the injuries piled up, as you had tough back-to-backs. You're, again, playing playoff teams almost every single night the last 2 months. And here we are at the end of January. You're 2 games over 500. You're still 8th in the Eastern Conference. And I think maybe at the end of the episode, we'll take a look at the schedule that's coming up over the next several weeks as we go into the All-Star break and then come to the other side of that. But again, looking at the perspective, if you go back to October and you were to tell yourself, myself, Luke, you listening right now or viewing, go back to October and say, hey, at the end of January, the Magic are going to be 25-23 and pretty squarely in the playoff picture and 8th in the Eastern Conference, we all would have been ecstatic to have that. So it feels good to be where we are right now.
Yeah, and ultimately in that stretch too, you talk about the record. You said it was, what would you say it was, like 17 losses or 18 losses?
11-17. You go over the course of those 28 games.
So 2 or 3 of those, I don't know the exact, but it is 2 or 3, I think, were against non-playoff teams, those losses. So, whole lot of losses against mainly just playoff teams. That's who you were really playing anyway. But we obviously the most recent one being that Grizzlies game, which was frustrating
Yeah,
for sure.
Golden State, Atlanta, and Memphis, 3
Mm.
losses, and a loss to Golden State, even though they're not squarely in the playoff picture. You're in Golden State. It doesn't, it's not as bad as it sounds. So it's really like 2. The one to Atlanta, DeJounte Murray at the buzzer, and then Memphis, where again you had a chance at the buzzer to win that game.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you lose that Atlanta game by 2, you lose the Memphis game by 1, 4 points in those 2 games, and you would have had 1 loss to a non-playoff team in that stretch, and it would have been Golden State, which came down to the final few possessions as well. So 11 and 17 during that stretch isn't exactly where you want to be, especially the way that we played in the month of November. But you've got to remember, missed J.I. for a big stretch there. Wendell was coming back. Markelle was coming back. Gary Harris has been out of the lineup. Franz missed 8 games in that stretch as well. All things considered, I'm really happy where we are, and I'm really happy the way the Magic fared through that 28-game stretch, which is the most brutal stretch of the entire season. I've seen people talking about, the Magic have the easiest strength of schedule. We've been saying that for like the last week or 2, and people are like, yeah, show me where the schedule gets easy. This is where the schedule gets easy. So although we've had the easiest strength of schedule and we've still been losing games the last couple of weeks, again, we'll talk about the schedule a little bit later in the episode here, but this is the point where it starts to lighten up a little bit as you get into February and into March and April. So, all right, folks, so a couple of housekeeping items here. Tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Thursday, tomorrow, Friday, February 2nd, is going to be our next watch party. We're going to be at Elixir, downtown Orlando, 9 West Washington Street, to watch our Orlando Magic take on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So make sure that you guys come out to that. Parking downtown, always a challenge. So if you can carpool, Uber, whatever to get down there, you'll probably have a much better experience commuting to and from that. So keep that in mind, folks. And Thursday, all-star reserves are going to be announced 7 o'clock on Inside the NBA on TNT. That's when that broadcast is going to start. So we're going to be live on playback starting at about 6:45. And we're going to react to the announcement together. Hopefully, Paolo Banchero is going to be named as an all-star reserve. Luke, I think he's incredibly deserving when you just look at the context of this season, how much better the Magic have been this season. Paolo Banchero has been the Magic's best player. He's been playing really well lately. He's had to carry a heck of an offensive load with guys being in and out of the lineup. And the fact that this team is, even though they're 25 and 23, maybe not where we thought they were going to be if we go back to November and we thought we were never going to lose a game. But again, if you would have asked people, not just Magic fans, but the Magic's over-under win total for this year was 36.5 wins. So here we are, February 1st, and the Magic are 11 wins away from reaching 36 already. So by all accounts, Luke, exceeding expectations. Paolo Banchero absolutely should be an all-star.
He should be. I am getting nervous, but he should be. And I'm just getting nervous because, yes, I know what TNT is saying, right? Like all of their anchors, Paolo Banchero, unanimously. But then I listen to also people that I do respect in media, like JJ Redick, and he doesn't have Paolo on there as his pick. Nikias, who also does that pod with him, didn't have him on there, right? So like, I am a little nervous, and I can be like, oh, I could see how maybe you got there, and I'm nervous that these coaches are going to do a lot of the same. But
let me jump in here and just try to put your mind at ease really quickly. As those guys are talking about like, oh, the on-off numbers, why are the Magic rated better when Paolo's off the floor? One, it's because we've had one of the best bench units in the entire league all season long. NBA coaches who are voting on NBA All-Star reserves aren't saying, oh, I think I'm going to vote for Paolo. What are his on-off numbers like? What are his shooting splits? I really don't think they're doing that. Obviously, they care about what's going on. I'm sure they're looking at the counting stats, but they're worried about the guys that they are game planning for on a night in and night out basis. And every single head coach around the league when they talk to our media before games, they're talking about Paolo Banchero and the assignment of trying to slow that guy down on a nightly basis. And not to mention the fact that the player vote, Paolo Banchero finished 4th in all Eastern front court voting. So to me, that goes a lot further than, what are his on-off splits?
Right, yeah.
I don't think they put that much weight into that.
I also will say the only guy that voted Paolo Banchero on that pod was a former assistant coach in Steve Jones Jr. And he said that he was the one doing votes for the coach. For All-Star.
I don't love that, but
yeah, that's what I'm saying too. There, but hey, who knows? Maybe Steve Jones, him being a coach and everything, he knows how they do it and how they vote. But yeah,
and he framed it in
hopeful.
The proper context of all the injuries and everything like that, so that the efficiency numbers with Paolo doesn't nearly tell the entire story.
Yeah, so I am still very optimistic, but I'm also not like just assuming. I'll
have my riot gear waiting here in the case that Paolo is not named an All-Star.
I would love to assume. I just don't want to be hurt.
Fair enough. We've been there before. I think the lack of national media attention that he's gotten is going to pay off with we haven't talked about this guy a ton. He hasn't been on national TV. Magic are playing really, really well. He's been their best player. They're exceeding expectations. Like Trae Young playing on the now 20-win Atlanta Hawks, who are 4.5 games behind the Magic and are barely in the play-in, 20-27. Like, if your team stinks, I don't care what your numbers are, you shouldn't be an All-Star. You just shouldn't. If your team is garbage, you shouldn't be an All-Star. You don't like that? Win games. That's how I feel.
I saw something that said, and I forgive me for not giving credit. I saw something on social media that said Paolo Banchero will have been named an All-Star before he had a game on national television, which is insane. And
Paolo's first game on national television will be the All-Star game.
Yeah, it's true.
Pretty wild to think about.
Yeah, because
right now
what's the date of that? Is the OKC
All-Star
game?
Yeah, the OKC game. Oh yeah, so yeah, you're right. The OKC game is first because that's going to be the 13th, and then the All-Star game will be that Sunday. I think that's the
5
18th.
days later.
So, all right. So his second nationally televised game, being the All-Star game is pretty solid. So. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the state of the Magic, Luke. So this week so far, the Magic are 1-1 on the week, a loss to the Mavs on Monday, and a win over the Spurs on Wednesday. They currently sit 8th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 25-23. They're now 12 games back of Boston, 7.5 games back of Milwaukee, 6 games back of New York, 5 games back of Cleveland, 5 games back of Philadelphia, 2 games back of Indy. They are tied with Miami. 2.5 games up on Chicago, 4.5 games up on Atlanta, 5.5 games up on Brooklyn, 7.5 games up on Toronto. On the season, the Magic are 24th in the NBA in offensive rating with a rating of 112.5. They are 5th in the NBA in defensive rating with a defensive rating of 111.6. They are 14th in the NBA in net rating with a net rating of 0.9. Taking a look at the injury report, still just Gary Harris sitting there with the calf strain, who has now missed the past 14 games and is starting to progress in his on-court work per Jamal Mosley, but is not yet graduated to start doing any type of real contact work. So he's slowly progressing. They're going to take it day by day. We sort of know the protocol with the Magic when it comes to injuries. So that is going to be something to pay attention to. Hopefully we're not without Gary Harris for too much longer. But it would be a welcome return to get him back into the lineup. Let's go back to Monday against the Dallas Mavericks, which was definitely a bit of a roller coaster, if you will. So, second night of a back-to-back, no Markelle Fultz. as they continue to have the maintenance with him returning from the injury. But Jonathan Isaac inserted into the starting lineup with one of the all-time teases in the history of the Orlando Magic. Like, you see Jonathan Isaac in that lineup. You saw him, the game before against Phoenix, looked incredible defensively. That lineup of Jalen Suggs, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, J.I., and Wendell. So that's how we're starting the game. So it's like we are just pushing this, the Magic's version of the death lineup just right out of the gates. Magic go down 7-2 a few minutes into the game. Then they go on a 16-0 run, Luke, to take an 11-point lead in the first quarter. Magic, Mavs start coming back a little bit. And then J.I. checks back in to end the half. Magic go on a quick, I think it was a 7 or 8-0 run. And then Magic are up 77-61 in the first half. And this is where the story takes a turn. Magic are outscored 12-35 in the third quarter. They shoot 20% in the quarter to Dallas's 63% in that quarter. And then in the fourth quarter sort of went back and forth. But what I want to turn to, Luke, is the 2-minute and 3-second mark. Lively is fouled by Cole Anthony, but the refs don't blow the whistle quick enough, I guess. And Wendell Carter sort of swiping for the ball, catches Lively square in the face. He's bleeding all over the place from the nose. So they get the initial foul call on Cole Anthony. They hit Wendell Carter Jr. with the flagrant one. So something that I don't recall ever seeing was they gave Derek Lively 4 free throws for the opportunity to make 3 of them. So the Magic were up 1 at this point, and in one possession, because Derek Lively ends up missing the rebound, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. ends up with the rebound, gets fouled. So the Magic are up 1, and in one possession go from being up 1 to down 3 in the span of about 10 seconds. Josh Green hits a layup about a minute later to give them a 5-point lead. Paolo Banchero splits free throws. It's a 4-point game with 54 seconds left. And then Luka finds Derek Lively with 36 seconds left for the alley-oop to make it a 6-point game. Paolo Banchero makes a dunk with 30 seconds left that you probably could argue that he was fouled on, that they just decided not to blow the whistle on. To me, it definitely looked like this was the dunk a couple of possessions later, but it looked like Paolo Banchero was fouled on the arm by Luka Doncic. No whistle, of course, even though every time you breathed on Luka Doncic, he was heading to the free throw line in this game. Basically, it comes down to a final possession. They're playing the free throw game back and forth. The Magic are down 3 with 6 seconds left, and you just know that if the Magic get the ball back, they're going to end up fouling. Paolo Banchero goes to the free throw line, misses the first one, misses the second one on purpose, down 2. Franz Wagner ends up with it, throws up a 35-foot prayer, doesn't go in. Magic lose 131-129. One of the more frustrating losses of the season, Luke, because they were playing so well. They had a 25-point lead, they had a 16-point lead. The 25-point lead was tonight against San Antonio, which, again, San Antonio almost came back in that game. But you had as much as a 16-point lead in this one in the third quarter. And then just little by little, Dallas started to chip away at it. Luka was getting to the free throw line. Tim Hardaway Jr. was getting pretty hot. He had 3 threes in that third quarter, all of which were wide open. And the Magic just forgot to defend or forgot how to defend. Offense goes cold for the entirety of the third quarter, picks back up a little bit in the fourth quarter, but it just wasn't enough to bring you all the way back, and the Magic end up losing what really should have been a very winnable game there in Dallas.
I think that everybody shares the same sentiment about this game, which is Jonathan Isaac not playing the second half was the difference. And you really don't need to look any further than just his plus minus and just basically 8 minutes. He was a plus 15 in 8 minutes, and he only had a field goal. He was 1 of 2. But when Luka would actually shoot the ball, I think he went 0 of 2 against J.I. when he attempted to shoot with him on him. But in large part, it was just due to the fact that Luka couldn't do anything with Jonathan Isaac. there was a few different possessions where JI got matched up onto him, and you could just see Luka would try to drive, couldn't make it happen, pull it back out, try to get a screen. JI would fight over it. He would try to penetrate the paint again, couldn't get past JI. I was just laughing, just watching Luka try to get past Jonathan Isaac. So for that to be the case and for him to make such an impact, don't get me wrong, I was thankful he was playing a back-to-back. But 8 minutes was not what I anticipated. I was hopeful for like 12 to 15. So for him to just play 8, I get it. Those powers higher than Jamal Mosley have instructed for him to be on the minute restriction there to as he's still rehabbing, but super frustrating. That's what it comes down to, and it sucks because the loss then overshadows the game that Paolo Banchero had in this one. Paolo was sensational.
Except in that third quarter, again.
Aside from the third quarter, which is becoming somewhat of a trend, and which we've started to keep tabs on. But, he finishes the game with 36, 9 and 7, 52% shooting, 13 of 25 from the field. So it stinks this game is a loss, right? It's just unfortunate in a waste of a Paolo Banchero game. Again, thankfully, he's giving them to us so often that we get some wins and great Paolo Banchero performances still. But also, like you alluded to, Paolo Banchero going 0-4 in that third quarter, a minus 18. He played 10 minutes and 30 seconds. Just not going to do it, especially when you've got Luka Doncic on the other side of the ball, or in this case, also having Tim Hardaway Jr., who, conversely, he played the entire third quarter, was 3 or 4 from 3, had 15 points, 5 of 7 from the field. Then Luka had 12, 4 of 6 from the field. And 5 assists Luka had alone in that third quarter. It was ridiculous, and it felt a lot like the beginning of the season, where you were struggling. Your offense was sputtering in the third quarter, and the other team was capitalizing on it. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Luka Doncic capitalized alone in that quarter and did to you what you did to the Phoenix Suns the night prior. Scheduled loss, all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't matter because it just was so frustrating down to the end. It was such a winnable game. The Magic should be looking at a 3-game win streak right now. So, I don't know. This was a super, super frustrating game that you didn't really expect to win. You go into it, you have an incredible first quarter, and then that second half was just a nightmare, specifically the third.
In the post-game video that I posted immediately after that game, I went on like a little rant of like the lesson that this team needs to learn is night in and night out, it has to be the defense for 48 minutes that carries you. If the offense is clicking that night as well and shots are falling, then congratulations, it's an added bonus. Paolo and the rest of the starters get to sit the last 5-6 minutes of the game and get some rest before the next one, right? But sometimes what happens with this team is the shots aren't falling. They let it affect the defense and they lose the energy and the attention to detail on that end because they're so frustrated. This was sort of the opposite, where you score 77 points in the first half and everything is going in and you let your foot off the gas defensively because it's like, hey, if we don't get a stop, we're going to get a bucket on the other end. And we're up 12, 13, 14, 15 for the majority of that second quarter, and Dallas isn't really threatening. And you come out in that second half, in that third quarter, and all of a sudden now the shots aren't falling and Dallas's are, and the defense is just super unorganized and all over the place. And again, all 3 of Tim Hardaway's 3-pointers in that third quarter, you go back, 2 of them were completely wide open, and the other was wide open because of a Mo Wagner blow-by that Hardaway just hits him with the pump fake, takes one dribble to his left, and nobody's within 6 feet of him and knocks it in. The other part of this game that was incredibly frustrating, it's not the reason that you lost, was the officiating. And Dallas shooting, what was it, 43 free throws in this game. Luka Doncic shooting 21 of them. I know there are a lot of people out there that are big on Luka. He puts up a lot of numbers, so on and so forth. I don't find Luka Doncic fun to watch play basketball. Sure, he hits some nice shots. He makes some nice passes, but his constant complaining and crying to the officials after every single missed shot attempt of his, he really believes, if I didn't make it, I must have been fouled. And he lets the referees know about it. And the way that they just let this guy parade to the free throw line, part of it were the Magic were a step late, making rotations and just not getting to the ball soon enough and fouling. They did foul a lot in this game. But then you go down the other end. Paolo had a late jump shot from the baseline where the defender falls underneath his feet. Paolo can't land safely. No call. Franz Wagner is driving to the lane, makes the layup, but is clearly bumped on the attempt. No call. Closing seconds of this game, Paolo Banchero drives to the lane. In the last 2-minute report, they acknowledged that Luka Doncic made contact with Paolo's arm, but they deemed it as being a brush. It was marginal contact. It was enough for Paolo Banchero to notice it on his way to the rim, and it's not Paolo Banchero's fault that he's 6'10", 250 pounds. A foul is a foul. Just because it doesn't affect one guy the way that it would a Trae Young doesn't make it a foul. And we know you would give the whistle to Trae Young because we've seen that plenty of times. So the inconsistency in the way that the Magic are officiated compared to just tons of other teams will always drive me crazy. Not the reason that you lost this game. Heck, when you look at the Magic, they were 21 of 28 from the free throw line. You make a few more free throws and you end up winning this game. The JI thing was definitely weird. 7 minutes, 53 seconds after starting the game. And everything that was said in the post game, our guy Fazan was in San Antonio tonight. Pre-game, asked Jamal Mosley about it again, whether or not the plan going into the game was for him to play 8 minutes. And basically, it just seems like they were going to play it by ear. He played the first half. Doesn't seem like he was injured because doesn't end up on the injury report. He was a full go tonight. Played really well, was a big part of the win. But I think what happened was like, hey, this is the first time this guy has played a back-to-back in 2+ months. Had to go to him at halftime, like, hey, how are you feeling? And he was probably pretty winded, I would guess. And it's just crazy that, maybe not crazy, but it's unfortunate that he isn't able to give you 3 or 4 minutes at the end of the game because, like you said, we all sort of feel that if he's able to give you just another few minutes in this game against Dallas, you're able to pull out the win.
I mean, what? You just need a stretch in that third quarter. Anything's better than what we saw in that third quarter, and you end up losing the game by 2. You can't tell me Jonathan Isaac doesn't make the difference in this game in that second half. You just can't. Just 3 points better of a third quarter in that.
The plus 15 in 7 minutes, 53 seconds is mind-blowing.
And all you need is another Jonathan Isaac stint, even of 5 minutes, and you probably have a great enough impact. Obviously, it's hypothetical. Might not be true, but it's still a possibility. He showed us in the first half that it's a real possibility. He showed us every time he stepped on the floor that he's going to change the game. Now, I also will say the free throw thing. I'm conflicted about it because I know that you and I are going to be benefiting from the superstar whistle.
Well, they need to hurry it up. They need to hurry it up. I'm ready. I'm waiting for it. We've had a decade of being on the other end of it. It's our freaking turn. It's my turn. You said it was my turn.
It is absolutely the case of what you mentioned a couple months ago, maybe. Well, I think it was when we played the Celtics. That when an incredible defender is defending and they basically try to make a play, what was the comparison you make? That basically they're going to get the benefit of the whistle because they're so incredible, right? Oh, it must not be a foul because they made a play. Similar, exact same situation actually with scores in the NBA. Luka Doncic is that good that you do find yourself lacking, maybe not being able to keep up with him, slide with him, get your hips around on him. Those things happen. And then you're caught in a bad position where you're swiping down or you're, get called for a blocking foul, whatever it might be. That happens because Luka is that good. So he is also given the benefit of the whistle when he gets brushed and he reacts. It's just easier to bait because it's like, oh, this guy gets fouled all the time, actually. So it must have gotten fouled then. I do think that there is definitely a concept to that and a theory to it that is proven to be true. But I also do know that Paolo Banchero is going to be getting the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he shot 11 free throws in this game. Paolo still gets a little bit
I
more
don't care
whistle
when it
than other
benefits
people.
me. I'm not lying. I'm not going to hide that.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
My opinions change when it benefits us.
Well, yeah.
Unashamedly.
Yeah, you wouldn't be a Magic fan. You wouldn't be Jonathan Osborne of the Six Man Show, and I wouldn't be Luke Sylvia of the Six Man Show if we didn't acknowledge the homerism.
What really annoys me is the Magic are third in free throw attempts a game and 27th in free throw percentage.
Yeah, you can't make them.
That just
crazy.
blows.
Yeah, make your free throws.
Like the Magic have probably lost 4 or 5 games this month alone by missed free throws.
Yeah,
instead
they don't
of what did I say? We went 6-11 or 6-10 this month. Maybe you're able to flip that if your free throw shooting is a bit better over the course of the last couple of weeks. It's been an issue all season long. It's going to be even more important as we get into the playoffs. And yeah, this Dallas game was incredibly frustrating because you saw like both ends of it, like the as good as this team can be and as bad as this team can be all in one game. And then you have just people that are annoying like Luka Doncic and him, talking trash and taunting down the stretch of this game. Well, it's just super annoying. It's like, bro, all you do is cry the entire game, and then you just get every call anyways. Like it's pretty crazy. But yeah, this was an unfortunate game. Like you mentioned, Paolo Banchero was incredible. The 36 points, 13 of 25, 4 from 8 from behind the arc, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. This is like Paolo's last audition, to the coaches around the league, making his case to be an all-star. And I just don't know, how you make a better, like final statement to those guys in terms of, hey, this guy needs to be in the all-star game. Another thing that was spoiled in this one, Anthony Black, 20 points, 7 of 9 from the floor, 4 of 4 from behind the arc, 3 rebounds, an assist, and a block, playing in the hometown in front of his hometown crowd. Anthony Black shooting the lights out. When he had that one that he was like falling like off the glass and it just kissed off the glass, went right through the net. Like this kid is just absolutely on fire. And the fact that Anthony Black is willing to take threes and is making them right now, although low volume, at a pretty good rate. If this kid can figure out how to organize an offense and improve as a playmaker, we're going to be really good for a long time. I really like Anthony Black. I like what we've seen out of him this year. And when he had it going, especially in that first half against Dallas, I was like completely on board the Anthony Black train.
Here's what I'll say is that it's hard to really, like, game by game, like you and I obviously, and Magic fans who watch every game are able to see Anthony Black has great potential. But I think it's hard to lose sight of it because he doesn't get as much shine, and especially in that starting lineup.
You would have to get minutes to do that.
Exactly. So he doesn't, but that's my point too. Is like even when he was starting, he wasn't getting a ton of shine. He was just kind of staying in his lane, which is what I appreciated about him as a rookie, just being happy with the opportunity and doing his thing. I would encourage you guys to find or just go watch like highlights of Anthony Black to this point. There's been some floating around on social media as of late, especially after that Mavericks game. But I would encourage you to go watch it because I watched it today already liking Anthony Black and the prospect that he is with his potential. And I watched it and I was like, totally forgot like all these tough finishes. He does super well with contact at the rim. He usually just bounces off and readjusts in the air and is able to bank it in or whatever he needs to do. He's super impressive. And you lose sight of that when you really are just getting him in small spurts. But if you watched his highlights and at least just like made shots from this season, like the kid, he's got great potential. And that's all you will find by watching that is like his ability to make tough shots. So many of them are tough. I think that we want him to obviously get to the point where he can take guys off the dribble a little bit more, but I think he's even shown improvement in that area. On the baseline, his 3-point shot is well respected enough. A lot of his corner threes, or like when he drives baseline, a lot of those baseline drives are derived from people just biting on his like slight pump fake from the three, because he's made it enough and he's gotten the respect, and it's just super impressive from him to already be adapting and learning as this young into his career.
And the fact that, at least for the last few weeks, hasn't gotten consistent playing time. And I just find myself like a rookie that gets inconsistent minutes. You would think when he's out there, you're like, well, see, this is why you're not getting minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen with Anthony Black. When Anthony Black's on the floor, I'm like, this is why you need to get minutes.
Yeah.
We need to see more from this kid.
Don't get me wrong. There are times where you're like, oh, that was a very rookie mistake. There's just times where like his timing is wrong, or his shot selection isn't right, or he doesn't know the defender. Like he doesn't. I don't know what it is, as far as like I'm sure it's part of the game being fast and it needing to slow down and things. But like off a pump fake, or if he does lose a defender, not understanding that defender has recovered already and is probably going to block your shot from behind. He has that happen a couple times where he tries to pull it from the elbow and it gets swatted from behind. Just things like that. You're like, oh, this is where I remember you're a rookie. You've been so great in the opportunities you've been given. There are some rookie moments to be expected. He's even Paolo Banchero, who had the greatest rookie season since Blake Griffin, had his rookie moments. So Anthony Black's got him too, but he is just really, really good already.
And I like was in my mind debating whether or not I was going to say this, because I know some people aren't going to like it, but I'm just going to say it anyways. Anthony Black and the potential that we've seen from him further cements in my mind that Markelle Fultz is not here beyond this year, whether that's at the trade deadline or if the Magic decide to move on from him, and let him walk in free agency. Like Anthony Black's ceiling right now to me is exponentially higher than Markelle Fultz's is going to be. Just unfortunately for Markelle, it comes down to his health. But I see, if you're asking me who has the better chance of being here long term and being like the part of the future of this team when we start to really compete, it's Anthony Black, and to me, it's not close.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that people will be maybe a little bit either partial towards Fultz, which I get. It's a great story in the sense of him coming to Orlando allowing him to rehab, and then him being what he was for us.
And recently, he has been more good than bad. I was about to say. I want to throw that out there. He's been more good than bad.
I don't think. Don't get me wrong. I do as a sidebar, I do love the fact that Markelle Fultz is willingly taking more mid-range elbow pull-up jumpers, free throw line jumpers now, where we weren't getting that at all in his return. He wasn't even looking, it wasn't like he was knocking the rust off. The dude, he didn't even attempt. You have to attempt to knock rust off, and he didn't. But now I don't know if it's a rehab thing, if it was or is TOS or whatever. Who knows?
He has a massive bandage on his shoulder, and he still has a very noticeable hitch, even in those mid-range attempts that he is taking.
Right.
Something has changed there.
Yeah. Yeah. That definitely safe. But he has taken some more of those. But regardless, in 2024, I do want everybody except maybe the big man to be able to at least attempt a three or be so elite, such as Jonathan Isaac, who I'm on board with you. I want to see Jonathan Isaac be the 5-man and for the long term. So I don't know what that looks like for Wendell Carter Jr. He's been good too as of late. So I don't know what that looks like. But anyway, I just went on a bunch of different tangents because there's a lot to talk about with this team right now. But yeah, with Anthony Black and Markelle Fultz, for me, it's not even so much about Markelle. It's just like I'm also looking at what the future could look like, and Anthony Black's got to be a part of it. I don't know for certain that he's going to be a facilitator per se. Hopefully, he can, and he's shown potential. But I don't know what that's going to look like, but his scoring and his shooting ability is already impressive enough.
The improvements that he's made from, like Arkansas and Summer League, like shooting the ball, he's made like leaps and bounds in terms of improvement there. And now on the season, he's shooting 38% from behind the arc. Now that's on 1.4 attempts per game. But when you're looking at the scouting report and you see a guy shooting 38% from behind the arc, you pay attention to that a little bit. And I don't know that I'm willing to go as far as like saying Anthony Black absolutely is the future of the point guard position for this team. But if you're asking me if it's Anthony Black and it's Markelle Fultz, to me it's Anthony Black, and I'm not even really thinking about it. Just because Markelle Fultz is still the superior basketball player by a wide margin. But to me, Markelle Fultz is at his ceiling and Anthony Black is at his floor. And you give Anthony Black 2 or 3 years and he can figure out how to be more of a facilitator and be able to get the offense organized. And I think he's going to be a much better player than Markelle Fultz even is right now. And because like defensively, I think they're really, really close. And you just give Anthony Black the extra, 2 or 3 inches in height and size that he has over Markelle. Is just going to be a little bit more versatile on that end.
They're close defensively, but Anthony Black has plays that jump off the page too in terms of just
does, but Markelle Fultz is the more experienced and more like savvy defender, where the mistakes that you mentioned that Anthony Black makes from time to time, Markelle Fultz is like the ceiling, sure, defensively, but like where their floor is right now, like Markelle Fultz, like what you're getting from him every play. He's not going to have like those mental lapses. And a year from now, Anthony won't either. But like that's the only like I don't feel like we lose a ton defensively going from Anthony to Markelle, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I just think about Jalen Brunson with Anthony Black on him. That was ridiculous. Obviously, his length was the issue for him, but that's who Anthony Black is going to go against most of the time is like 1s and 2s. And with his length, he's going to disrupt a lot of guards, especially smaller ones like Jalen Brunson. That's what sticks out to me. And the performance I think about defensively, of like, what can he be when he learns how to use all of his length? That's the type of defender that I think he can be.
And the fact that you can switch him onto threes, pretty comfortably and him not be in no man's land. So, yeah, we're all aboard the Anthony Black train. Still love Markelle Fultz. Don't take that the wrong way. Playing very well. Definitely is I don't want to say put our concerns at ease, but it's not nearly as bad as what it looked like when he first came back, and the fact that he's taken those mid ranges is super encouraging. All right, enough about the Mavs game, enough about Anthony Black. Let's talk a little bit about Patreon. So our patrons are the individuals that help keep the lights on here, help us, be able to make time in our lives to watch Magic games and record podcasts and do different events. Help us do all the things that we do. We cannot thank our patrons enough. If you're a new or a longtime listener or viewer of the podcast, and you want to know how you can get involved and help us do what we do now and maybe then some, help us do even more than we're doing right now, the Patreon is a great way to be able to do that. You can find us at patreon.com/the6man show. We have different levels of tiers, each with their own different varying levels of benefits. So you can find what works best for you and subscribe to that. And again, help us do what we do each month. Part of our elite tier and Hall of Fame tier benefits is we give them a very special shout out each and every episode. I'm going to start that now and start that by shouting out the Court Cousins, and then Drew Gooden, Armin, Carson Tulo, Jonathan Borges, Normal, Magic Player History, Gabe Gaines, Wiffle, Michael Martin, Jamel Miller, Michael Salapong, Donkey Punch Dave, Paolo and Francis Warmth, Pierre A. Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey Eduardo Sanchez, Danimal, Dutto 15, Bobby Skinner, Goody 93, Teddy Sylvia, Eric Lopez, Fuchsia, Bill Fulton, Edmund Lagone, Jose Esquilin, Caleb Pete Candleism, Time Mr. TV, ESPN Really Sucks, Gear 95 Shred, Junior Bruce, Half Rican, Shawhead 177, Obi the Don, Himlo Ben Himro, RM Prof 221, Magic Kid 714, Mysterious Mosley, Soft Taco, Victor Cologne, Irish Magic Mike, Austin Lampy, Random Hustle, Only Franz, Maria, Keith Wallace, Fritz, Currency Kev, Bruv Sal, Kason Green, Santi Leon, Kane Eckler, The Distract, Ahmad Timsa, Chansu, Tom Gadsden, Dead Air, Richard Tuttle, Jeremiah Quintero, Barstool Magic, and Debo 1980. Again, if you would like to help support the show, you can find us at patreon.com/The Six Man Show.
Jonathan, I'm going to Orlando tomorrow or on Friday, as you know, as you are as well. Do you know what that means I'm making time for? Because you make time for things that are priorities. You know what I'm making time for on Friday?
Jam hot chicken.
Jam hot chicken. So I'll be going to 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 in Hannibal Square. I'm going to go to jamhotchickenfl.com to access the menu, order ahead so that it'll be ready for when I get there. And if you guys aren't familiar already, Jam Hot Chicken is Nashville and LA inspired hot chicken shack, locally owned and operated in Winter Park, Florida. And you guys can go find them on social media at Jam Hot Chicken. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you.
Luke, you are very brave ordering ahead when you got to take the turnpike to get to Orlando, because you just never know what's going to happen on the turnpike. I did that once, and I was literally messaging Jam Hot Chicken on Instagram while I'm stuck in traffic on the turnpike. Like, I swear I'm coming. I'm going to be there. If I don't get there in time, you guys can just throw out my food. I've already paid for it. But luckily, I got there like 15 minutes before they closed, and my food was still hot and fresh and ready to go. So you're a gambler.
I feel good about it. I feel good about it because Jam Hot Chicken's food, not just spice level, but readiness and hotness, stays hot for a good 10 minutes after I get it. So, because they're preparing it on order, I got no problem ordering it and rolling the dice there, because I still have a really good feeling. As long as it's in that box, I'm gonna open it. It's still gonna be hot and ready to go.
Awesome. My mom has never been to any of our events in the 5 years. That's not true. My mom was at like the OG watch parties that I used to do in Old Smart Buffalo Wild Wings. But since we've been doing things a little bigger, a little better, a little extra, if you will, she hasn't been to any of our bigger events. So she is coming out to the watch party. So if you all see my mother Friday at the watch party, don't be disrespectful, because I will kill you. I will murder someone for my mother. Don't get it twisted.
Thank her for the birth of her son, Jonathan Osborne. For
you don't got to talk about the conception at all. Don't be disrespectful. You want to thank her for giving birth? That's totally fine. You don't have to get with the extracurriculars. Be respectful to my mother, or I'll stab you in the neck with a soldering iron. But hopefully, my mom is going to have Jam Hot Chicken for the first time on Friday. So looking forward to that. All right, let's talk about this Spurs game. Always good to record after a win.
Mm-hmm.
Markelle Fultz back in the starting lineup. Jonathan Isaac coming in off the bench. Was somewhat of a rocky start, for the Magic. They got down by as much as 11 in the first quarter. Then Jonathan Isaac checks in, starts checking up Wemby. Magic go on a nice little 7-0 run, like almost immediately, and pretty good second quarter for the Magic, as they were able to take the lead into the half. And then they blow the doors open in the third quarter. Paolo Banchero starts to get the ball rolling a little bit, starts to make a few buckets. Popovich says, all right, we're going to throw a double team at this kid and see how he does. Well, he started dishing out to Jalen Suggs, to Franz Wagner. They start hitting threes, and the Magic blow open this game. Took as much as, I believe it was a 25-point lead in this one. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm texting people I know. I'm like, man, we really needed this win. This is great. I'm so happy we did this. And then about 20 minutes later, I was feeling like, man, I really jinxed us. We're going to lose this freaking game, because the Spurs come all the way back. They make it a 3-point game with a few minutes left. But Markelle Fultz, Paolo Banchero, those guys were able to make big plays down the stretch, and the Magic go on to win 108-98. Victor Wembanyama, this was the first game that we really got to take a look at him. Obviously, you've seen all the highlights, maybe caught a national game or two where you were sort of half watching, you're on Twitter, whatever. Oh, Wemby just did that. That's kind of crazy. But this is the first game that I sat down in quite a while. Last year when he was playing in France, I watched a few of his games there. But this was like the first Wemby game this year that I really got the chance to sit down and watch. First few minutes of the game, it was very apparent that the Magic had no idea what to do with this guy. He's so big, so tall, arms are so long. It's like no matter where you are on the floor, he's able to make an impact defensively And it was really apparent the first few minutes. Then Jamal Mosley calls a timeout. Guys start going right at him, trying to use the rim as a deterrent so he can't just come over the top and keep blocking these shots. And Powell even had it going a little bit offensively to start the game. But then Jonathan Isaac checked in and just does what Jonathan Isaac does. Like not Paolo. Wemby had 9 points in the first quarter. And then Jonathan Isaac comes in. And I'm like, as good as J.I. is, like this dude is supposed to be the second coming of Jesus Christ, apparently. The amount of hype that this kid has received, deservedly so. Maybe not the Jesus Christ comparisons, but the basketball hype that he has received, like he is as advertised. He moves in a way that a man his size should not be able to move. He is so skilled. He is so intimidating defensively, has so much touch at the same time. But Jonathan Isaac came in and I was like, all right, let's see how this is going to go. And Jonathan Isaac did what he does to everybody. Being able to take the other team's best player and effectively cutting their impact in half while J.I. is on the floor is a massive game changer. And that's what Jonathan Isaac did in this game. And the Magic got a little hairy there in the second half, but being able to pull out the win on a road trip, game that you desperately needed to win. I went as far to call this a must-win ahead of this game. And yeah, Magic get the W, and a little concerned, but I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Paolo Banchero, after the game, said that Jonathan Isaac, in regard to who's asked about his defensive performance against Wemby, Paolo just described it as another day at the office. And he said, quote, "There's no matchup that I think he hasn't won this year. That's what Jonathan Isaac does every game." And it's true. There was a part of me that was like, oh, I don't know about Jonathan Isaac at the 5 or just like guarding 7-footers with whatever it might be. But tonight against Wembanyama, I was like, yeah, if you can D up Wembanyama, you're just fine. And he did. He had the block on Wemby when Wemby thought he had him beat. Wemby's maybe not used to playing against guys with length like Jonathan Isaac, and gets past him. J.I. recovers, smacks it, I believe, off the backboard. So just Jonathan Isaac, he's just incredible. Again, just another one of those nights where I feel like this is me every night now, just chuckling at Jonathan Isaac playing defense. When he's in the game, I just find myself wanting the offensive possession to be over so we can skip to the defensive one, so I can see what ridiculous thing he's going to do. And it's wild, but I can't help but just watch him the entire time. I find myself like not even ball watching sometimes. I'm just locked into what J.I. is doing. And it's just, you see just like his mind working in real time on the court. His instincts just through the roof. I need a little more offensively, but defensively, don't
you
touch
really
anything.
Though? Like if this is as good as it gets offensively with J.I., you still won't take everything else?
I'll take
it. It would be
everything
nice,
else.
but do you need it?
Do I need it? But no, but I'm a selfish man. I would love a little more. I would love for him to be able to take that corner three and not think this is going to clank the side of the backboard. You know what I mean? So unless you're going to tell me that everyone else in the lineup can take and make a three, which is where the whole Anthony Black or just like any capable shooting point guard comes in. Because for the long term, I would love for Jonathan Isaac to be the 5. We all need a little bit more games played out of him to be like, that's our future 5. But
that's
tonight showed
putting it lightly, but yeah, it's a fair point.
We're just, it would suck if we don't get to see Jonathan Isaac full strength for at least a few seasons. Oh, I don't know. It makes me sick.
The crazy thing to me is like this dude went 3.5 years without playing basketball regularly.
And we were talking about him
if he could
maybe
walk.
missing a step.
Like he's as good defensively as he's ever been. Like you go back to December of 2019 in young Jonathan Osborne's mind of like how good Jonathan Isaac is defensively. And given the muscle that he's put on, he hasn't lost any speed or agility or lateral quickness. Like, you talk about guys who are like instinctual shot blockers. Jonathan Isaac is that, but just his defensive instincts and the way that he navigates around the other team's offense to get in a spot to help or cause a change in someone's shot or get a deflection or make the block. Or oftentimes, guys get lined up on JI, they have the ball, and they're like, I'm just going to get rid of this because I'm not going to do anything with it. Like, he's just a special, special defender, man. And by any metric that you look at, he, by minute, by game, by 100 possessions, is by far and away the most impactful player for the Magic. Like, it's a legitimate question. Is Jonathan Isaac our third best player right now? I think the answer is yes to that. We need him on the floor more. We absolutely need him on the floor more. But if you just like in a vacuum, taking everything that each guy gives you, is Jonathan Isaac our third best player right now? I think the answer is yes.
I still value Jalen Suggs. I know that he is taking threes right now at a high volume, and such as tonight, maybe not converting as much, right? He shoots 4 tonight, which is honestly
with J.I. and Jalen, it is close.
It has to be, because Jalen is
and availability is a big part of that,
and an incredible perimeter defender, on ball defender, all of the things, and he's still, at the end of the day, he's still shooting 38.5% on 5 threes a game. So it's hard for me to say. There is an argument as far as impact. Third best player, though, I still give the edge to Jalen Suggs. I think that Jalen, when he had it going, whatever that was a few weeks ago, you couldn't convince me Jalen Suggs.
He's had it going the entire season until the last, week or so.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's easy right now to be like Jonathan Isaac's the third best player. But as soon as Jalen Suggs is back in it, I don't think that J.I. is the third best, but he's incredible.
For someone that, by all accounts, and people that cover this league and cover this team, that see how special of a defender Jalen Suggs is, I don't know if anybody gets less respect in terms of their defensive reputation than Jalen Suggs. Jalen Suggs fights his butt off every single night on that end, gets the most disrespectful whistle out of any elite defender I've ever seen in my life. Like, people can and do whatever they want to Jalen Suggs. Run him over, throw him to the floor, crash into his knees, whatever. Not a whistle. Jalen Suggs breathes on Luka Doncic or on Trae Young, and those guys are going to the free throw line. I think after like this year, if he makes like a all defensive team, and the entire league like just can no longer ignore the fact that he's a great defender, maybe then he'll start getting a bit more respect. But Jalen Suggs, as a defender, gets one of the absolute worst whistles I've ever seen in my life. He touches a guy, you can cash it, bring it to the bank, somebody's blowing the whistle. It doesn't matter what the context is. He makes any amount of contact with an offensive player, they're blowing the whistle every single time.
I do think it has a lot to do with the physicality he plays with. Not that it's right as far as how he is officiated, but I think they know, like, Jalen Suggs has the reputation of being the bull in the china shop. Great defender, but maybe sometimes a little handsy. And he's still learning too, what he can do and what he can't do in these rules. I mean, they're changing all the time, it feels like, as far as what the officiating does and what they're changing. But it's hard to be a perimeter defender in the NBA right now, especially. But also, as a note to the Spurs game, Jalen Suggs had 4 steals tonight. Jalen Suggs has 4 steals. Also, another thing I don't want to be overlooked, he had 5 assists and 1 turnover tonight. He was very good on that end.
And one more 3 for my parlay, but I'm I'm not going to be in his DMs like,
go.
damn
Go
it,
at
Jalen.
him. Yeah. And then Jonathan Isaac, 4 blocks. So they combined for 8 stocks, steals and blocks.
That's hot.
Not bad for your your 2 best defenders on your team. They were both sensational.
Jalen
on
Suggs
that.
is top 10 in NBA guards in personal fouls per game. Part of that, though, is he's always matched up on the other team's best perimeter player,
Right.
who happens to be the best player on the team at drawing contact and drawing fouls. So.
Yes. Yeah.
But could also get a better whistle. I'll just say that. All right, back to this Spurs game. I mean, just overall good performance for the Magic. Outside of that, spurt in the fourth quarter where it wasn't even so much the Magic's defense as it was the offense just went completely cold. San Antonio went on like a 19-2 run in that fourth quarter to make the game pretty close. Apart from what I talked about with the Dallas game, where this team has to realize that they have to defend every single night for an entire 48 minutes and not letting their foot off the gas, which I do believe, given the talent and the potential they have defensively, that eventually they will get there. It might not be this season, but eventually they will get there. We have to get away from these 6-7 minute stretches where we cannot get a bucket. Like, something has to change there. I don't know if it's Paolo and Franz just saying, hey, we're just going to put our heads down and get to the rim no matter what. I don't know if it's more shooting. I'm not entirely sure of what the answer is, but it is just, you are losing games because of it. You lost the Dallas game. As bad as the defense was, if you can get a few more buckets in that third quarter, you might win the game. You get a few buckets, during that stretch, tonight against San Antonio, Wemby doesn't come in the last few minutes. The starters don't have to play the last few minutes in that game, and you just win outright, pretty comfortably. So for me, that's going to be the next step for the Magic is 48 minutes of defense, and then sure you can have 2 or 3 minute stretches, 4 minute stretches where you can't buy a bucket, but these 6-7 minute stretches of just the offense being non-existent, we got to find a way to cut down on that.
You can even have it once every 20 games. But as often as they have been having these scoring droughts, there's a common denominator somewhere. And I don't know if it's like just late to coaching change, like adjustments, or just not an urgency coming out of the half. I don't know, because we've seen these guys play with urgency outside, coming out of into the second half, but it's weird, man. And Paolo just like, I really want to sit down and look at his shots from the third quarter in a lot of these games, because he's going 0 of 6, 0 of 4, 1 for 6 consistently right now during the third quarter.
All right, let's talk about the schedule that is coming up here. We're a little over an hour into this now. We'll close with this. So we've been talking about the Magic have the easiest strength of schedule the rest of the way here. As I pull up Tankathon, I'm going to go to the remaining schedule strength, and the Magic still do have the easiest remaining schedule left. With their opponents for the rest of the year having a 44.8% win percentage. You still have 3 games against Detroit, a game against Washington, another game against the Spurs, 3 games remaining against Charlotte, a game against Portland, and 2 games against Toronto. Your toughest games left on the schedule, you got 1 game against Minnesota, 1 game against OKC, 2 against Milwaukee, 1 against the Clippers, 2 against the Knicks, 1 against the Cavs. So we talked about, that 28-game stretch, Luke, starting December 6th and basically running until today, as we're recording this, the 31st of January. This is where the schedule starts to lighten up. So Friday, obviously, you've got Minnesota. But then you're at Detroit, winnable game. You're at Miami, winnable game. You're home for San Antonio. You have to win that game. You're home for Chicago, winnable game. You're at home for Oklahoma City and you're at home for New York. Those are a back-to-back. You have to split one of those. right? Like you can't really lose both of those games. You got to find a way to win one of those. Then you're at Cleveland, you're at Detroit, have to win that. You're at Atlanta, winnable game. I want to say Brooklyn is a winnable game, but they've killed us so badly this season. I really don't know what to think of it, but you should win that game. We haven't played well against them so far, but you should be able to beat Brooklyn. Then you're home for Utah, winnable game. You're home for Detroit, winnable game. You're at Charlotte, you're at Washington. Can definitely win both of those. You're at New York. We've played really well against New York so far this season, but they've, undergone some changes immediately after the last time that we beat them, and they look great right now. Then you're home for Indiana. You're home for Brooklyn. You're at Toronto. Then you're home for Toronto. Then you have Charlotte again. Like, I just went through the next 16, 17 games, and 75% of those, upwards, maybe 80% of those are like games that if you had to just pick on paper, you would probably bet the Magic to be favored and should win a lot of those games. So this is the stretch of the season where it's time to pick up wins. It's time to put some winning streaks together. If you're going to make a run at the 5, 6, 7 seed, whatever, this is the part of the schedule where you'll be able to do that, Luke.
Yeah, it's favorable. You got to start stacking wins, and I'm optimistic that they'll be able to do that. Keep Jonathan Isaac healthy at all costs. Hopefully not at the cost of 8 minutes a game on back-to-backs, but might be the foreseeable future. We'll take back-to-backs while we got them, though. Keep everybody healthy. Maybe get Gary back, just throw in another shooting wrinkle. That'll be fun. Keep it rolling.
Or, some of these guys might be moved. Who knows? It's exactly a week from today is the trade deadline. So this team could look very different by the next time that we release a Thursday episode, folks. So don't forget, Friday is going to be our next watch party at Elixir downtown Orlando at 9 West Washington Street. Magic are taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Be sure to come out. Last year at Elixir was a lot of fun. Great atmosphere, great food. Watch party is going to start at 7:30. Tip-offs at 8 o'clock. Make sure that you don't miss that. Say your prayers today, whatever you got to do. Make sure that we're getting Paolo Banchero to the All-Star game. That's going to be announced Thursday night on TNT. We're going to do a playback at 6:45. We'll put out the links on Thursday on our social media accounts, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, as always, let's get some wins. Luke, that's going to do it for this one. For Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to The Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!